All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time today, attending our webinar, Unlocking Advanced Cyber Security Strategies with Grove dSOC, that we'll be hosting today. I'm Brad, the Business Development Manager at Grove, and with me today I have my colleagues, Chris, heading up our cyber services, and Johan, who heads up our cybersecurity development and support. We're going to spend the next, say, 40 to 45 minutes or so just taking you through our services that we offer. But before I hand over to Chris, I just wanted to introduce Grove and talk a bit about our relationship with Darktrace. We Darktrace partners. We've been working alongside Darktrace, the team, pretty much from the outset of the African campaign back in 2018. With the wealth of experience that we've gained working with doctors over the years, we've actually developed this very unique managed services offering. It's tailor-made for doctors. It's a first of its kind in Africa, and it's aptly named dSOC. With Darktrace, with its AI-based approach to cybersecurity, I mean, it's really an incredible technology, and unquestionably, AI is the future and fundamental in staying abreast and ahead of cyber attacks. And a few years back, doctors actually developed this pioneering technology. It's called the AI analyst. And I just want to touch on that for a moment. As we see cyber attacks increase, the industry's facing a shortage of experts to deal with them. We have one study that we found that 70% of companies globally were affected by the lack of cybersecurity workers, while 30% actually reported burnout among security experts. And the thing is, they just overwhelmed by the extra workload. Many said they were unable to properly investigate security alerts. When they did, they often made mistakes. And so the concept behind the cyber AI analyst was to emulate the human thought process just to investigate the threats. And they trained the AI um, to actually deal with these threats, how they operate during investigation, what questions they would ask, what direction it takes them. So this would actually do an enterprise-wide investigation, pieces all the security events into a single incident. So it writes a easy to understand report. You can easily explain it to management, tell a story what happened. You don't need a technical person, and it saves a lot of time, saves a lot on the resources. And it's, as incredible as the technology is, it's artificial intelligence, and with that, there are limitations. It can only go so far. So to close the gap, you really need that human cyber analyst to provide further context, further analysis, pointing in the right direction. And that's where the Grove team of cyber experts come into play and really show their value. So Darktrace, as good as it is in actually prioritizing severe threats for you, our team actually takes that one step further to proactively notify you daily on what threats you need to be focusing on. At any point, you can engage us, and we effectively form part of your team. So if you lack resources to manage doctors effectively, we are there to fill the gap. And not only will your security team actually gain a better understanding of doctors, the solution how to deal with these threats, but also in the cybersecurity space as a whole. So yeah, we're very much excited to show you an overview of our dSOC services, what it entails, and I'll hand over to Chris for further insights. Thank you, Chris.
Cool, thanks, Brad. Thanks for that useful tidbits there. Good to have information is always key, and the more we have, the better prepared we are. Don't pick yourself, Brad. I'll just use your speaker for sound. Thanks, Brad. What we're going to do next is we're going to talk a bit about Grove dSOC and the value that it brings. I'm going to list a few points. There's about 6 or 7, maybe 8 points I'm going to talk about. It's not all encompassing. It's just those things we think are the real high value points. We're then going to go over to JK, who heads our, you want Chris, known as JK, who's going to give some insights into some of the practical things we see with our service and just provide some insights into the thinking. JK and I built this service over a few years. JK was the pioneer in that space, and then we just took it to the next level together. to what it is today, what we call dSOC. So Brad did mention that it's a solution geared for Darktrace, and that is 100% true. Our solution is purpose-built for Darktrace. So we don't ingest logs, for example. If you think about a SOC, before you go there, Brad touched on this, but the D for Darktrace, SOC for Secure Operations Center, of course. So it was built specifically for Darktrace. So whatever Darktrace gives us, whatever analysis it makes or analysis it does, we use that as our source of information when we report back to our customers on what we saw within the environment. So we're not going to collect logs from everywhere else, but because Darktrace has been on this roadmap or has a roadmap to introduce as many integrations as possible, and in doing so, sort of extends the scope a little bit wider. With our strategic location, the appliance Darktrace, we are already receiving every network transaction that we configured for. So scope and visibility is great, but we can enhance that even further by looking at other elements of your security landscape and then bring that into the platform. So purpose-built is the service, dSOC. Time to value. Now, if we consider that discussion about SOC, where you are ingesting logs from everywhere, that takes time. It could be weeks if you're small and there's low complexity. That's very rare. It usually takes months and or quarters, several of them, to get you to a state where you've realized the full value of your investment in SOC. You will get value, no doubt, but it takes time to get to that point of realizing the value. In some cases, we've seen customers take an annual approach. So this year, they're going to focus on firewalls, switching, routing, and then the next year, they might focus on critical systems such as Active Directory for authentication, perhaps databases for data repositories, and so on and so forth. So that's the approach we've seen customers take. But of course, all of that takes time. Now, in contrast, if you are a Darktrace customer and you've made acknowledgements, you've done some tuning here and there on the system, we as dSOC, when you plug it in, are able to leverage all of that learning, all of that acknowledgements, all of that value that you added into the system. We're able to leverage that from day one. So there is a couple of days where there's back and forth in terms of a technical setup, but once that's done, you get your first report from our team of analysts. Maximize your Darktrace investment, that goes without saying. So one of the key aims of our service is to ensure that Darktrace, every inch of value that Darktrace offers in your cybersecurity arsenal, we're able to extract that and make it valuable to you. And of course, we want to make it so that Darktrace becomes the key or the cornerstone of your security in terms of your network and everything else related to that. So for us, it's about sharing the value to make sure that when it comes to renewal, it's an absolute no-brainer. Unique response SLA. So Darktrace themselves, they offer services. So if you have a question, you can put it forward to a team as well. They don't have a SLA. And the reason for that is that Darktrace is a tech vendor, and that's where their strengths lie. So as expected, the technology vendor would rather focus on product enhancements as opposed to focusing on services. And that's where we come in. Grove is partner of the year for many, many years. We've had a long-standing relationship. We offer that SLA because not only are we great at selling Darktrace, that's an easy product to sell, of course, but also we're great at that technical aspect required to run Darktrace effectively. Achieve the full Darktrace cyber maturity scale. So what that means is, it's the discussion, it's been around for a long time, the discussion from being reactive to being more proactive. Darktrace have released this graphic that shows on the x-axis, you look at the level of interaction, and then the y-axis, the level of proactiveness. In other words, how much time you spend is directly related to how proactive you're going to become. So when you start out at Darktrace, you've got this resident threat silo, and in there, you rely heavily on the automation of Darktrace. So the response component or the respond component, the AI analyst that Brad mentioned as well, all of those come into play as soon as there are serious events or security incidents in your environment. And this is really where Darktrace plays a big role in thwarting those attacks quickly. So machine speed attack with machine speed response. However, there's still an element of reactiveness in that state. You don't know really how it's gotten to that point where there is now an active attack, but you know that Darktrace has blocked that malicious activity. Now, as you spend more time, you start looking at key things like higher scoring devices, top scoring model breaches. You're going to analyze the attack phase investigation. And when you do this, what you're going to uncover is the areas of risk with those higher scoring devices. You're going to unearth the vulnerabilities in your environment through those top scoring model breaches. And then the attack phase investigation will give you a great idea as to how long adversaries are in your network. So you can see how long the dwell time is before an attack is actually launched. And that, of course, all feeds to the next layer where you start looking at models that are relevant to you. Darktrace has developed over 600 models. Not all of them will be applicable to every customer, but you will find your usual suspects. What's normal in your environment will become your usual suspects. And when you've gotten to this later future threats, there is an air of predictability in that space in terms of you can quite, with a high level of accuracy, predict where the next attack is going to start if it's not dealt with early on. So the reason that I'm showing you all of this, of course, is you'll see a little red apple. That shows Grove's dSOC, and it shows where and at what stage we can offer guidance and provide that insight into your environment. So when you onboard dSOC, you get this capability at any level or at any stage of your cyber maturity scale. We have a 24/7 active monitoring service. So this service is, as the name suggests, it's available 24/7, 365. So any time of day, this service will kick in, night and day, I should say, will kick in. Now, traditionally, our response service has always been, we call it IRR, Incident Response and Recovery. It's always been 24/7. So let's say you get a report today and tomorrow or the same day you want to ask a question. You can pose that question to our team of analysts at any time of the day or night. Our team is available to you 24/7. With the active monitoring, what we've done here is we've isolated what's called enhanced monitoring models. So there's 45 of them out of the 600, and these are high severity, serious events, or what Darktrace considers high severity and very events that should be not taken lightly. So it usually is in the space of data exfiltration, perhaps lateral movement, ransomware, all the worst case scenarios. This is where those 45 models will kick in, and armed with that information, we can take the action quite quickly. So we follow a emergency contact process. We'll make contact with your teams or team in a round-robin fashion until you help somebody and take the necessary action. There is a service we also do, it's called high-value asset tagging, and it follows a very similar approach. The difference here is we're looking at your high-value assets, and what we do is we tag it with high-value or HVA, and we follow a very similar principle, also 24/7. So if any of your high-value assets are under attack at any time of the day, whether it's 25% or 99%, we're going to follow that same process of active monitoring. Because it's the crown jewels, essentially. It's what makes the business tick. So that's the reason why we cast that heightened awareness on your high-value assets, once you've identified them, of course. De-risk the cyber skills gap. Brad mentioned there is a skills gap in the globally, and it's not just in IT, but more specifically in cybersecurity. We find that there's a serious cyber skills gap. So how do we propose to deal with that? Well, we have multi-layered skills level. The first level, we have the analysts who are usually the first responders. They're also responsible for drafting our daily IOCs, that IOC report that looks at the day that was and tries to what the risks were in that day. Very early warning type, very reconnaissance phase kind of activity we'll find in these reports. The second level is also the first point of escalation. These are usually our team leads, and they also run, for the most part, assist investigations. Now, our first level, our first responders, are quite capable of running these investigations by themselves. The only reason why we pass it to the next level is because of time taken. So if the investigation is going to take a little bit longer, we pass up to the second level, and then they will take it from there. Above that level, we have third level, and these are our subject matter experts, a lot of experience, a lot of skills in this space. And these are also our analysts who run what we call threat hunting and optimization sessions. These sessions are interactive. They have a threat hunting nature to it as well, optimization. So if you want to optimize certain elements of your Darktrace instance, we can do that. We can also offer a very low-level vCISO kind of service and guidance, advice, recommendations, and so on and so forth. The last point I want to mention is cost. So if you consider everything that is required to make sure that you are fully covered in the world of cybersecurity, you have to make sure that you have the right team. So there's the process of recruiting, there's the process of training, skilling up, and then of course retaining these skills once you've gotten to that level. And then 24/7 requires a team of analysts. You need a roster, you need to have shifts, and then with that there comes a lot of idle time. So you need to have a budget, you need to have the right people and the right exposure, because when you, for example, for us as a team of analysts, we come with varying levels of expertise, as I highlighted earlier, but also different insights into different industries. So, for example, we might have customers in mining, customers in finance, customers in retail, and over and above that, we also have different regions we're dealing with. We have customers as far as the eastern coast of Europe, Caribbean, Europe. So I meant to say East Coast in the US, the Caribbean, Europe, Africa, of course. We have many different types of it's like word, Brad, exposure to different environments in our daily analysis of our customers. So all that, if you consider all of that, the price at which Darktrace or dSOC comes is at a fraction of the cost of trying to achieve that by yourselves. I'm going to skip over now to JK, who's going to take us through some of the operational insights that he and his team have experienced or do experience in the daily execution of the classes. JK, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. Just first off, apologies for the nasal sound.
JK, we can't hear
I've got a
you.
bit of a cold, but I should be able to push through. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Let me just
We can hear you now, yeah?
be unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, all good.
Loud and clear, JK.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. So as I said, apologies. I've got a bit of a cold, so sorry for the nasally sound. So in terms of dSOC, in terms of security as a whole, really, for a very long time, companies would opt for tech over resource, which is a smart move, but human resource, still plays an incredibly important role within the security environment of any organization. So usually what companies would do to rectify this is get outsourced help, usually in the form of a SOC. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. SOCs tend to be very heavily process-driven, often cumbersome with a large number of process and playbooks, and they're very expensive as well, but they tend to get the job done with those little disclaimers that I just mentioned. So in terms of our design, our vision when we created dSOC was to try and make things a bit smoother and a bit more agile. It's called dSOC for Darktrace SOC, but I like to kind of see it in another way. We're trying to dSOC SOC. We're trying to make it a bit more agile, a bit quicker, a bit simpler. And we've done this in various ways, as Chris just mentioned. And the main value that you get is a SOC-related service without the mess and the fuss, and for a lot cheaper, provided obviously you have Darktrace. And then the big point of Darktrace is its integration. So we have recently partnered with CrowdStrike. So if you do have Darktrace and CrowdStrike, the dSOC team can still provide that SOC value service because we will see your network layer with Darktrace. And with the integration that Darktrace allows us to do with CrowdStrike, we'll be able to see your EDR things as well, all from the single pane of glass. So it's a really simple idea we had a couple of years ago that's really grown into a efficient and valuable service for our customers. So just a couple of points on the dSOC insights. Chris, just move one on, please. I'm not sure if I've got control now.
Nope. You have to allow me for this, JK.
Okay, no, that's fine. So first of all, communication enhancement. So nothing we do is automated. We still feel that a very valuable part, even within this highly advanced world of AI monitoring, is that human element. So we are still heavily focused on that human element. We do everything, or rather us as the analysts do everything. We don't rely on automated templates and things like that. So when you receive one of our daily reports, it's sent from an analyst address. You're more than welcome to respond to that, reply to that, ask questions, reply with regards to whatever's in the report, ask to have a quick call to discuss any of the alerts we've raised on your side. We've made it a very particular point not to use like no reply addresses or kind of automated system addresses in order to send these reports. Let's move on to the next one there, Chris. Personal relationship is kind of an interesting thing. We've got quite a number of customers, we've got quite a number of analysts, but everybody works on all of the analysts works on all of the customers' environments. Over time, they tend to build up relationships with the security team, with the administrators, and they start to get a good sense of how these customers work as well, which make it a lot more valuable in terms of the analysis we provide, because we start to understand how your business works. Next one there, Chris. We are 24/7, as Chris mentioned as well. We are true manned 24/7, which means there is an analyst on working on shift any time of the day or night. We have, in our research, noticed that some SOC environments tend to do an unmanned night shift, or what we just referred to as graveyard shift, where they have some advanced phone routing in order to route to somebody that's on standby. We have the same phone routing as well, but we do have an analyst, or at least one analyst, working through that time during the night, even with that phone routing enabled. So there will always be somebody available if you need to speak to somebody. It doesn't matter what time of day or night it is. All right, next one there. Thank you. Now, a big a mantra on our side is prevention is always better than cure. Now, we do this by providing you with monthly health checks. We found with customers, when they start off with Darktrace helps them get deployed, and then over time the customer's environment changes, but they tend to forget that Darktrace visibility is affected by that, and obviously the respond aspect will then be affected by that, and then they only realize that when they get hit by ransomware or something really nasty. So we put in quite a lot of effort to ensure that you are aware of the status of your environment, that everything is working, that the respond or the blocking system is able to reach everywhere it's supposed to be able to reach. And we've actually recently done some internal reviews and research in the amount of critical issues customers have, and we've literally seen a very sharp decline in the amount of critical exposures and critical risks and critical attacks that customers used to get since we started doing the health check. So we've even seen that we've noticed it internally as well, that we are not sitting on as many big incident response calls and emergency meetings to investigate critical issues, purely because of all the health check work we're doing and making sure that the environments are safe the way they should be. All right, next one there, Chris. This is quite an interesting one. This is one of my favorite points. Now, obviously, Darktrace, behavioral based, it is designed for a specific purpose. Network monitoring and detection. It can look at your cloud. It can do email. It can do things like Office 365, Azure, etc. but it is designed with the idea that it will detect unusual behaviors whenever that occurs. With the focus on unusual behavior. Now, if you think about fraud, generally what happens with fraud is somebody uses an existing line of connection or an existing line of authorization in order to change something, somewhere in order to commit the fraud. Now, what's interesting is even though Darktrace is not really designed to see that, because it won't necessarily be seen as unusual behavior, we've helped customers uncover fraud and even were able to find the actual perpetrators of the fraud because of the level of detail that Darktrace has in its logs that it's ingesting from the core switch. So even though the system isn't technically designed to do that, with our knowledge and expertise and experience using Darktrace, we have the ability to actually do things that the system isn't strictly designed to do. All right, next one there. Great. So strong relationships with customers kind of goes back to the personal relationship point. As I've said, as time goes on, customers tend to get to know the team better. We're on a lot of customer-based calls, even if that's just checking calls to big, threat hunting and optimization sessions. And we tend to build very good relationship with customers. And like I said, through that, we tend to get a very deep understanding of the customer's environments, which again helps us on the analysis side, on the Darktrace side. Most customers receive a daily report. As I've said, we send this from the actual analyst account, so it's very easy just to open that channel of communication between yourselves and our analysts. Again, I've mentioned this a couple of times now. Analysts tend to get that enhanced, deeper understanding of your environment. So if you are consumer-based, if you're a bank, if you are, a pharmaceutical laboratory, they're gonna get that understanding. Oh, this is what you guys do. So it makes it a lot easier to pick out things that are unusual and it needs to be investigated. And of course, we always bring Darktrace to the forefront of customers in their minds, because obviously we have all of these communication that we do on a very regular basis. All right, just move on to the next one there. I think it's the final point actually. The entire team is certified. We tend to only focus on the Darktrace analysis certification, because that's obviously what we do with the system. But because it's such a great system, because the team really loves working with it, because they find it so interesting, we've got a number of our guys who've gone beyond that. We've got a couple of guys who've done the engineering certification. We've got a couple of guys working on the email certification. And then everybody has the essentials one, which is essentially the first one you get through that that learning course as you move through that. All right, I think that's the last one, Chris. Just see if there's one more. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I thought there was one more. So this last point has changed slightly. So over the years, we have seen other Darktrace partners starting to do the same thing. We have been the first one to do it years ago when we started, and we are still the partner with the most enhanced and the most advanced Darktrace services within this space. All right, thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Jake. Just one point to add on to that about the certified dSOC team. So Darktrace have recently launched what they call Darktrace Defenders Partner Program. We were pre-selected to participate in that program ahead of before it became publicly available to all the partners. And we, from the onset, we ticked all the boxes in terms of certification. So that was quite a plus for us to be immediately onboarded onto the Darktrace Defender program. I'm just going to go over and just show you something that Francesca Bowen, who was the former global head of partnerships, what she had to say, and I quote, "Grove has invested heavily over the years in building out their sales and SOC services with Darktrace in order to deliver our technology at incredible scale and speed, delivering a partnership with innovation and excellence," and so on, end quote. So she has moved on to the VP for cloud go-to-market, but we work very closely with her There's a new team involved, and we're building that relationship as we speak. So we'll probably have a couple of quotes as well. And let's go to the Q&A part. Brad, are there any questions that have been posed on the chat?
Yeah, Chris, just bear with me. Okay, I see a question over here. With high value asset monitoring, does Darktrace create that list automatically? And if so, how's it done?
So the Darktrace doesn't do it automatically. It's something that we need to plan with you as the customer. So, for example, you would identify, let's say you have 1,000 devices within your environment. You would then say to us, of those 1,000 devices, these 50, these 100, whatever it may be, these devices are our critical assets. So if you're a bank, for example, and you're place a lot of value on mortgage loans or home loans or whatever you want to call it, whatever it's called in your area, we would then place this HVA tag on those individual assets. And then once we do that, once the tag's been applied, it will then fall into that extra vigilant or enhanced monitoring bucket where we have put extra attention on those devices. So it's not automated, but we do go through a process of classification as to what is critical assets, and then we add them into the system. The good thing about this as well is what we would do in that process is, let's say you give us a list of 100 devices. We would then analyze those devices. We would give you a report to say that of this 100 or of these 100, let's say 50 of them are pretty quiet, they don't make too much noise. And then we look at the next level, we say that the next 30, for example, are relatively talkative, but the last 20 are very noisy. Let's take a look at trying to reduce the amount of false positives, if any, with some of those critical assets. We don't want to be calling you 10 times a day. You don't want to be heard from, you don't hear from us 10 times a day. So that's the exercise as well. We get to also optimize around those critical assets as well. I hope that answers the question. Brad, anything else?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that. I do see another question over here. Where are your analysts located?
Okay, so our analysts are located in 3 locations. So the first one is in Cape Town. We have analysts in Johannesburg, and we also have analysts in Nairobi, Kenya. So very continental, spread across the continent in different locations, of course, and that helps us with scheduling and rosters. But we do have shifts, so we do have a follow the sun approach. And as JK mentioned, there will always be an analyst available at any time of the day or night. You'll have someone, a person, a human to speak to, because we do follow the sun method when providing our service. Brad, any other questions?
No more questions, Chris. That's pretty much that's it.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us on this webinar. We schedule these relatively often. We have them at least once a quarter, but we'll share the invites and we'll share the information about the next one. So thank you for joining, and have a good day further.
Cheers, guys.